This is Mark Bell, and I have a very special podcast for you today. I feel that this is an urgent situation with glyphosate. You probably heard a lot of different things about it. You've heard a lot of different speculations about how much glyphosate gets sprayed, how bad it is, how maybe bad it's not. But I'm here to tell you that it sounds like some really, really bad news. It sounds like it's really harming the human biology in ways that maybe we didn't quite realize or recognize. But it's harming us in some ways that I think is catastrophic to mankind. And I think that's one of the reasons why it's banned in a lot of other countries. Dr. Samsel is a gem, and he was interviewed by my friend Carl Lanore. Carl has been a long-standing friend. Carl runs something called Superhuman Radio. Carl formerly was way into lifting and doing all these different things over the years. He started Superhuman Radio because he himself used to weigh over 300 pounds, and he realized he needed to do something about that. So he got into fitness, and he got more and more and more into it. And he kept kind of diving down these rabbit holes. So Carl is somebody that years ago taught me about dirty electricity. He's somebody that has taught me about microplastics. He's somebody that's taught me about Tonkat Ali and all these other things that you later heard mentioned on many other famous podcasts. Carl, because he's had his podcast for so long and he's been so curious about these things for so long, he has found a lot of these things, and he's been on the hunt for some of these things. And in fact, I believe he's interviewed Dr. Samsel more than once, but he interviewed Dr. Samsel with my buddy Carlos Jimenez, and I thought that this was a really critical time to drop this podcast because Dr. Samsel has his 7th paper that's getting published. It's still under peer review, but I'm sure as his other papers get past peer reviews all the time, that this one will be no different. He has tested everything you could possibly think of almost for glyphosate. He's tested stuff from other countries. He's looked at stuff under microscopes. He's tested stuff with mass spectrometers. He spent his own money. You'll learn in this podcast that he spent, I think, $1 million. This guy spent $1 million of his own money. And you'll find out why in this podcast. I don't want to give away any spoilers, but he's very attached to this project and very attached to banning glyphosate. So what do we do about glyphosate? Sometimes you may have heard me talk on this podcast about, hey, you got like a soft tissue injury. It's like, okay, well, let's do myofascial release. That's a good solution. Okay, let's take some collagen peptides. Let's take some vitamin C to help with the collagen peptides. Let's make sure that we train appropriately. Make sure we have good programming, good hydration, all these different things, right? Make enough sleep, enough rest and recovery, right? But what do we do about glyphosate? We have to figure out a way to come together and to stand together, and it has to get banned, is my belief. And it's not just from this one podcast. I've been looking into this for a while. And this year, when RFK, I believe, he was talking about potentially banning or limiting or something with glyphosate, and then that got turned down, and I think Trump said to use more of it. It's just disastrous. And I'm sure that there's many reasons for a lot of this. Some of it has to do with money. Some of it has to do with power. Some of it has to do with money and power. And some of it probably has to just do with convenience. And there's probably some people out there too that maybe think, oh, we've had glyphosate for a while, so it's like, what's it really doing? Well, that's what this podcast is about. That's what we're going to show you. Ryan, what was the stat? I know you looked it up a few minutes ago, so you might have to re-look it up. What was the stat on how much glyphosate was dumped in the last year? It was like in the billions, wasn't it?
It is 1.3 billion to 1.6 billion pounds of glyphosate is sprayed worldwide each year.
There's that much of it being sprayed every year. Many different things have been tested. Many different of your favorite products, whether it be yogurt or lipstick or testosterone, insulin for diabetics, has been shown to have glyphosate in it. what in the world? How does that happen? How do these things happen? Well, it's just everywhere. The world is infected with it. As Carl Lanore said, Monsanto has taken a giant poop on the earth. And that's kind of what's happened. Like, you think about how hard it is to get poop off of stuff. It's very hard, right? It's very hard to like completely get rid of it. And that's where we're at. And also, once glyphosate is banned, it's going to take about 12 to 15 years for us to even recover from it, to be able, well, maybe we'll never recover from it fully, but it's going to take that long to get it out of our atmosphere. I'm not sure if you'll find information on this, but I believe that glyphosate uses up a lot of CO2. I forget some of the reasons why. It uses up a lot of CO2 and it uses up a lot of methane gas as well. And maybe I'm not even using that verbiage correctly. Maybe uses up is not the correct term. Maybe releases, or something like that is maybe more the answer. But Dr. Samsel, luckily, he does cover it in the show. But I also thought that was really fascinating because it's changing our environment. It's one thing to like kill a bunch of plants, and then maybe these sprays and stuff, it kills some insects, and you're like, all right, well, that's probably not great to kill off grasshoppers or to kill off, some of these beetles or whatever, because maybe they're important. Like, everything's important, right? Everything has a reason. But you're like, I'll take it because I like these tomatoes or whatever it might be, right? Like, there's some give and take that goes on in this world, and I'm open to it, But it seems like glyphosate is like destroying nearly everything. And I think originally what they were trying to say, what Monsanto was trying to say right off the bat, which is owned by a larger company called Bayer, which is makes pharmaceuticals and makes aspirin and all kinds of different things. What they were originally trying to say is like, oh, it just hits this one enzyme. It just does this one thing, and it's remarkable, and it's gonna help us to produce more crops. And some people listening right now, maybe some people are farmers, or maybe people are like, hey, well, it helps us produce. America produces a lot. I'm here in California. We produce an amazing amount of agriculture in Northern California. It's completely unbelievable. It's mind-boggling. And some people say, hey, they're immediate 30% reduction in produce. Well, maybe we just have ways to trend it downward, right? And maybe it's over the course of a few years. But if it's for our biology, if it's for us to be healthier, then you would think that everyone would be for it, right? But so many things are about profit that it tends to outweigh. There's solutions to everything. And in the case of glyphosate, the solution is to ban it. That's the only solution that we have right now, is to ban it. You can't just take Shilajit and hope that you're going to shit out all your glyphosate, but it could probably help. There are things like fulvic acid, Shilajit. There are things that are protectors. There are things that can help. And I'm going to get into in a second, and you're going to hear all this stuff on the podcast as well. But I just wanted to try to hit you guys with a little bit of information before we hand you off to my buddy Carl. Again, this doctor has been knee deep in this research for so many years. But again, I just want to repeat, I think this is really important. Supposedly, Dr. Samsel is going to get together a petition as soon as this next paper drops. And I'm going to be all over it. I'm going to promote it. Hopefully other people will get behind me. Hopefully they're promoted as well. It's important that we're able to control our own destiny. And I think when it comes to glyphosate, the only solution is to have a replacement for it. And that's going to be critical, though, too. Because, what is the replacement for it? The replacement for it could be worse. We've seen that happen before, where years ago they had coconut oil at the movie theaters that they would pop the popcorn in. And then it turns out they're like, hey, let's get rid of that. And then they use seed oils because of polyunsaturated fats. Hey, let's use these polyunsaturated fats. And they use soybean oil. Well, soybean oil, when it gets heated to those temperatures to make popcorn, it oxidizes and causes problems. And now you have rancid, not only did it get exposed to heat? But you also made trans fatty acids, which ended up being a huge problem. And now, see, that's a great example, though. We have gotten rid of a lot of trans fatty acids in our food supply. Or we got rid of some, at least. And there's some foods that at least say 0 trans fats on it and things like that, right? At least there's public awareness, and at least you can make a decision. Right now, there's nowhere to go. My buddy Matt from Cultivate Elevate, who you guys may have heard me do a few podcasts with, he's a believer in organic. Some people believe in organic and some people don't. Some people are like, hey, organic, it actually makes a difference. And other people are like, doesn't matter, everything has glyphosate. What I would say to that is that, and again, in the show, they go over it quite a bit, but what you're going to find, what you're going to learn is that the more processed the shit is, probably the more glyphosate it has, because there's probably more wheat and there's probably more grains, and there's probably, right, like these agriculture things that need to be like farmed, which is all food, right? All food's getting farmed, whether it's a cow or a grape. It's all getting farmed. Even your wine has glyphosate in it. How's that? Like that sucks, right? Your wine, your cigarettes. I mean, it's insane. You're gonna learn all this on this podcast. It's completely nuts. Were you able to find some of it?
Yeah, so it says there's an indirect effect with the carbon dioxide. It says because glyphosate kills weeds, farmers do not have to plow their fields. Plowing exposes massive amounts of underground carbon to the air, turning it into CO2. So by eliminating the plow, glyphosate prevents vastly more CO2 from entering the atmosphere than it releases. And then with methane, there's also an indirect effect. Glyphosate itself does not release methane, but it can alter the bacteria that manage methane in nature. On formal farmland, it has little to no impact on methane. However, if heavy agricultural runoff carries glyphosate into wet environments like swamps or rice paddies, it can feed certain aquatic microbes, which can indirectly cause them to produce more methane.
Yeah, and what you're going to find in this show, I like to have some accuracy when I say stuff, so excuse me if I'm off, but I believe in this show, Dr. Samsel revealed that there's somewhere in the neighborhood of 5 million pounds or 5 million tons. There's a huge difference between those two, right? He may have said 5 million pounds of methane from the usage of glyphosate. So it's negatively impacting our environment. He actually goes on to explain how it's responsible for tornadoes. What in the right? Tornadoes, cancer. I mean, it's just nuts. And again, I've never done this before. I've never utilized anybody else's podcast to air and to put on my own show. But this has a lot of value for me. One thing that I did find a little bit frustrating about the show was that it was just hopeless. And that's to no fault of Carl Lanore, and that's to no fault of Dr. Samsel. That's the situation that we're in. The situation seems hopeless, but it's not hopeless because we as Americans can fight against it, and hopefully we can get a petition going. I'm going to try to even figure out how the hell you get a petition going in the first place. I don't know anything about. I should know about this kind of stuff. I don't know anything about any of this, but maybe I'll start a website or something myself just to get something going, because I believe in this. And I think this is what it is to be an American, is to be able to find out information like this, try to confirm it the best that you can with as many different people as you can and many different scientists as you can. And then when you realize you have a problem on your hands, you go and freaking do something about it. And this is where people talk about going to your farmer's market. And this is where people talk to your local farmer. You talk to, Farmer Bill at the Davis Farmers Market about the lamb that he raises. And you say, hey, how is the rest of the land around where you're at? Oh, so-and-so over there, he's got some crops and stuff, but yeah, he's organic too. He doesn't use glyphosate or any of that bullshit either. And you kind of find out about the surrounding areas, and you find out about how they manage the lamb and how they, raise their animals and all that kind of stuff, right? So I do think that, as frustrating as it is, and I realize not everyone's in the same situation from a financial standpoint, there are people that are big fans of farmer market type things. And even in downtown Sacramento, you get kind of towards the outskirts of downtown Sacramento in the city area. I remember they had a farmer's market there. And I've seen farmers market in city areas for some of these reasons. So again, it could be cost prohibitive for some people, but that's why we have to stand together. So we help people, whether they're rich or poor or in between. We help everyone to get rid of glyphosate, and I think the main thing is just to get rid of it. So without further ado, here's one of the greatest people that I know. Here is my buddy, Carl Lanore. Enjoy the New York accent and enjoy the information from Dr. Samsel. And shout out to my buddy Carlos for helping them put that together. Unfortunately, we do not have video. It's only audio. So we are going to just put in like pictures and various random ass stuff to go along with the podcast. Strength is never weakness. Weakness is never strength. Catch you guys later. Bye.
Thank you for joining us. My name is Carl Lanore. For the past 22 years, I've hosted the Superhuman Radio podcast. And this is a continuation. We've restarted the show. For those of you who don't know, I had a stroke. I lost 80% of my vision. My brain doesn't work that great either. But we're here to deliver some very important information. This may be the most important podcast you've ever listened to. We're going to talk about the existential danger to humanity from Roundup, glyphosate. It's in everything. It's in our food. Dr. Anthony Samsel is the person who I'm interviewing today, and he is the person who blew the lid off of Monsanto's lies and hidden agenda about glyphosate. I first interviewed him, I don't know how many years ago, but the plot thickens. Welcome to the show, Dr. Samsel.
Thanks for having me, Carl.
And we have Carlos in the background. Carlos, I didn't get your last name. I'm sorry.
Jimenez,
who was introduced to me by Mark Bell, a great supporter of the show and my work, because I can't record podcasts myself anymore because of my handicaps. So Carlos is here to make sure that we get this show out. And I'm going to say it again. This is the single most important podcast you will listen to this year. Dr. Samsel, let's start where you want to start, please.
I have a new paper that's coming out shortly. It's almost ready to send to the publisher for peer review. They're waiting for it. It's Glyphosate Pathways to Modern Disease, number 7. Glyphosate and its metabolites alter the functionality of biological macromolecules, causal agents in human disease. This paper is my 7th paper in the glyphosate series. And in this paper, I reveal what glyphosate actually does compared to the hundreds and perhaps thousands of other papers that have been written on glyphosate. Nobody has really addressed the molecule for what it is. It took a few years to come to an understanding of what glyphosate does, how the molecule reacts in human biology. But this paper discusses it in detail. Glyphosate is a synthetic amino acid, and it's also a phosphonolating agent for phosphorylating or phosphonolating proteins and DNA, RNA, enzymes need to be phosphorylated. When glyphosate phosphonolates, it's because
I want to inject something. I'm so sorry to interrupt you, but right now there are people tuning out because they buy organic foods. And I think we need to address something very important. Dr. Samsel, you have tested the rain in how many places on Earth now?
I've tested the rain in Germany, Spain, Switzerland, here in New Hampshire, on the rooftop of MIT, also in Hilo, Hawaii, and all the samples that I report in this new paper had glyphosate in the rainwater. The glyphosate in rainwater I trace back to biofuels, and the biofuels, corn, ethanol from corn, and biodiesel, even gasoline and diesel fuel, ethanol is added. The ethanol from corn carries a glyphosate molecule that's it becomes an ester with the alcohol. It chemically bonds, so it gets vaporized into the atmosphere. And when it rains, the glyphosate molecule comes back down in the rainwater, contaminates the planet. And that was part of this research. But then we follow it. I follow glyphosate into the food supply. Organic food is also being contaminated. I'm on a strict organic diet, but I'm still urinating glyphosate, passing glyphosate, even though I'm on an organic diet. The USDA organic label in this country is contaminated. It's contaminated actually worldwide. Virtually everything that you find in the supermarket contains glyphosate, and glyphosate destroys biology. It causes human disease.
So I want to go a little deeper into this, because there's people right now that are saying to themselves, well, I can avoid glyphosate. There's glyphosate in eggs because they feed the chickens corn. When you go to the store and you buy a vegan diet fed chickens, they're eating corn and soy. There's glyphosate in there. There's glyphosate in wine, expensive wine. There's glyphosate in everything today. And this is important because this morning my friend Mark Bell sent me a video of someone, I don't know his name, saying that we're talking about minuscule amounts of pesticides and herbicides in food, and you don't have to buy organic. And that's complete bullshit. I'm sorry. That's the last time I'll curse. But glyphosate is in everything. They're testing human breast milk and they're finding glyphosate. So you're feeding it to your newborn baby. In fact, Dr. Samsel, talk about the evidence of glyphosate exposure in the utero. When you tested baby teeth, didn't you?
I've tested. I'm probably the only person on the planet that's tested all types of human tissues, not just teeth, fingernails. I've tested spinal discs from degenerative spinal disease from surgeries. I've tested the human breast tumors and found glyphosate. I've tested semen, eggs. In human baby teeth, I tested quite a few teeth from babies. Many of those children are deceased now. They didn't make it. They had glyphosate in their teeth when they were born, which says that every tissue of their biology had glyphosate as part of it, as part of the proteins, as part of the phospholipids that surround the cells in mitochondria. That's where you find glyphosate. Glyphosate. This new paper that's coming soon shows that glyphosate is in all four types of biological macromolecules that make up all forms of life, no matter what biological kingdom. You'll find glyphosate in virtually all living things. In those babies' teeth, that was an awakening. I also analyzed the umbilical cords of babies, and I analyzed the placenta from one woman whose baby was born with heart defects, and I found 1,600 parts per billion glyphosate in that placenta that was sent to me. And that's really substantial. 1,600 parts per billion glyphosate in human tissues, and 1 part per billion of glyphosate. It might seem minuscule, but that 1 part per billion contains 3.5 trillion molecules of glyphosate, and every one of those molecules of glyphosate can corrupt a protein, a phospholipid. It can turn DNA on and off by phosphorylating the DNA. It can corrupt the carbohydrates of your body. That's the sugars are carbohydrates. In fact, glyphosate bonds and alters all forms of sugar, whether it's sucrose that you use in cooking, or lactose in milk, maltose, fructose in fruit. Glyphosate will bond to it, and it'll become a delivery system. But the human tissues that I analyzed, that was most disturbing, including a breast tumor that I received from a woman in Georgia. Her oncologist sent me the breast tumor for analysis, and I analyzed that and found about 4 parts per billion glyphosate in the breast tumor. Now that's substantial. That represents over 12 trillion molecules of glyphosate in that human breast tumor. But does glyphosate itself cause cancer? That's the next question. And Monsanto says that glyphosate doesn't cause cancer, but yet the literature shows otherwise. Well, I have to say that glyphosate itself doesn't cause cancer, but its metabolites and nitrosamines do. Glyphosate can become part of your collagen and the keratins in your biology, the structural proteins, which I've tested extensively. Glyphosate becomes part of the polymer chain of the collagens and keratins that build your structural tissues. But it's not until glyphosate is nitrosylated that it becomes a carcinogen, and also when it's metabolized. Monsanto, when they originally supplied data to the U.S. EPA studies on glyphosate in order to gain approval, this is back in 1974. And also in 1988, 1988, when they did the final metabolization studies of glyphosate, they told the EPA that there was one metabolite that they didn't know what it was, that they couldn't figure out what it was, and they called it compound number 11. Well, the Environmental Protection Agency never pursued that further. They just accepted that AMPA, aminomethylphosphonic acid, was the main metabolite of glyphosate, and that glyphosate could be nitrosylated to carcinogenic molecules, the N-nitrosoglyphosate. So they set a limit on that carcinogen of 1,000 parts per billion in the product itself. They didn't take into account that glyphosate can be nitrosylated in your gut, and you can generate that carcinogen in your body, and that it can cause cancer. They also didn't take into consideration pursuing that compound number 11. which I have. And compound number 11 was identified as dimethylaminomethyl acid. Now, that particular compound gets metabolized, and it gets metabolized to a dimethylamine. And the bacteria of your gut nitrosylate it, and it becomes NDMA. Nitrosodimethylamine is a known carcinogen, and it is a carcinogen that the Food and Drug Administration had several pharmaceutical companies pull their products from the market because of NDMA contamination. NDMA, nitrosodimethylamine, is a known carcinogen, and it's produced from glyphosate. People are passing compound number 11, which the EPA ignored. They're passing that in their feces and also in their urine, and it's being created in their body. It's being created in their colon by gut bacteria. So we're producing these carcinogens, and they're causing the rise in all types of cancer, whether it's breast cancer, melanoma, like the melanoma I have on my face that I'm being treated for. I have cancer, melanoma, and it's caused from glyphosate. That compound number 11 should have been identified and pursued by the Environmental Protection Agency. In the animal studies, that compound was 24 times greater than what it was in the product itself, and it showed that it was being created in the body of the animals. It was being created actually by the gut bacteria. Monsanto and the EPA never pursued it. This is a terrible molecule, and everyone's being exposed to it, whether it's in wheat bread or corn flakes or any packaged food you buy. You're consuming glyphosate, and it causes innumerable diseases, including macular degeneration of the eyes. Glyphosate inhibits enzymes that are necessary for our biology to break down our fats and digest our food. I analyzed a number of the enzymes of our biology that are responsible for digesting our food and breaking our food down so that it can be assimilated and nourish us. One of the enzymes in particular was lipase. That enzyme metabolizes fats, and glyphosate inhibits that enzyme so that it doesn't work, so that it doesn't metabolize the phospholipids and lipids of our biology to use as energy. And in macular degeneration, for one disease, that the phospholipids of the eye, they become oxidized and defective, and they need to be removed. And the enzyme responsible for removing the oxidized phospholipids from the eyes is phospholipase A. The 1 and 2, glyphosate inhibits the lipases. It bonds to these amino acid serine of the molecule and inhibits its function so that it doesn't work. So you get a buildup of these oxidized phospholipids in the eye, and you get macular degeneration. It destroys the tissues. That's just one. Glyphosate interferes with your ability to handle viruses. There's a phospholipid that's phosphatidylinositol, and inositol is necessary for bonding to various virus to protect your biology from virus like respiratory syncytial virus. Most children before the age of 2 get respiratory syncytial virus, and that can come back and reoccur through your entire life. It's when the phospholipids are disrupted by glyphosate. When glyphosate becomes part of the phospholipids, it changes their function so that they don't function. And that's what happens with respiratory syncytial virus and the phospholipid phosphatidylinositol. It's disrupted by glyphosate, and it's unable to rescue you from virus, like the COVID virus. People that had high amounts of glyphosate in their biology weren't able to handle the COVID virus. That's why about 1% or less than 1% death rate from the COVID pandemic. Those people, I believe, had more glyphosate in their biology, compromising their phospholipids and phosphatidylinositol, making them unable to be saved from that virus. Respiratory syncytial virus is a serious problem. And
Dr. Samsel?
Yes.
I want to guide us through this discussion. So occasionally I'm going to interrupt you. I apologize. But there's something else I learned from you, that glyphosate causes a phenomenon called amyloidosis. And shortly after I interviewed you and Dr. Seneff about amyloidosis, I discovered a type of heart failure from amyloidosis of the tissue of the heart. Talk about amyloidosis and its effect on our biology.
Amyloidosis happens in our organs and our body. Amyloidosis forms plaques, solid plastic plaques and fibrillary tangles in the brain, characteristic of Alzheimer's disease. The plaques and fibrillary tangles that are found in the brain are amyloid plaques, and those are the same chemically the same structure as cataracts of the eyes. Monsanto found in their studies of glyphosate that glyphosate caused cataracts in the animals, and initially, when they submitted the work to the EPA picked up on it and questioned the cataracts in the animals, because only the glyphosate treated animals got the cataracts. The control animals didn't have them. So Monsanto said they were going to take a look at it. So they got another pathologist. They didn't use the same pathologist that had done the original work. They got another guy to look at the animals, and magically that guy found a rat that supposedly had cataracts that was in the control group. Now, I'm not saying that they pulled a switcheroo, but I think they did. Glyphosate, glyphosate causes amyloidosis. It disrupts enzymes that keep the beta amyloid fluid. Beta amyloid has several hundred amino acids in that peptide, and it's actually a fluid substance. It's a monomer, and there are several enzymes that maintain its fluidity, and when they're interfered with, it polymerizes. It goes over solid, becomes a plaque. It's like oxidized phospholipids in the eyes. Kind of the same principle. Glyphosate disrupting enzymes, and the strange thing is that Monsanto promoted glyphosate as a chemical that only affected the shikimate enzyme pathway of plants, bacteria, and archaea. They said that that was the only enzyme that glyphosate affected. Well, I remember when I first heard that, I said, this is baloney. This is BS. If it affects one enzyme, it's got to affect others. It's simple chemistry. I mean, the same in organic chemistry. There's the functional group rule in organic chemistry that says that the same functional group of a molecule will undergo the same or similar chemical reactions regardless of the size of the molecule for which it's attached. And molecules can have more than one functional group. Additionally, condensation reactions can be spontaneous and don't require enzymes for chemical bondings. And glyphosate fits that bill. It has several functional groups, and they behave the same way. That's why glyphosate becomes part of proteins, because it's a synthetic amino acid. It was a new form of matter that was created by Monsanto. Actually, it was created originally in 1950 by Dr. Henry Martin at the pharmaceutical company Cilag in Switzerland, but Monsanto didn't know that. In the early 70s, Monsanto discovered the glyphosate molecule on their own, but they didn't know that it had been previously made by Dr. Henry Martin in Switzerland. What Monsanto patented was the fact that that molecule was an herbicide. It killed plants. Monsanto glazes over and the fact that glyphosate affects many enzymes, hundreds and hundreds of enzymes in human biology, in animal biology, and plant biology, and even the enzymes of bacteria and fungi. They're all affected in some way. The various different classes of enzymes are affected, like the serine hydrolases. That's a class of enzymes that has several hundred members, different enzymes, and they all have the same thing in common. Their active site that makes them function is the amino acid serine, and glyphosate chemically bonds to serine readily, and so it inhibits the enzyme. So you can go through hundreds and hundreds of enzymes and find that glyphosate actually disrupts them. And it disrupts the phospholipids that surround and protect the cells. And inside of the cells surrounding the mitochondria, there are phospholipids. And glyphosate becomes part of those phospholipids. That's one of the major discoveries that's in this new paper, is the fact that glyphosate and its phosphonyl metabolites become part of phospholipids that surround and protect the cell and surround and protect the mitochondria. Now, what's important about phospholipids is they have a balance. The various types of phospholipids, whether it be phosphatidylcholine, phosphatidylethanolamine, phosphatidylainositol, phosphatidylserine, they appear surrounding the cells in balance and surrounding the mitochondria in balance. And when that homeostasis or balance is disrupted, it affects the function inside of the cell, and it affects the function inside of the mitochondria. I found that glyphosate enters the mitochondria. I analyzed cow hearts, the extract of cardiolipin, which is a phospholipid that's found peculiar to the surrounding the mitochondria within the cell, and isolating the cardiolipin and analyzing it, I found that there was glyphosate in some of the cardiolipin. Cardiolipin is a glycerol sugar molecule. It's a trihydric molecule. It's the base structure for our phospholipids. The glycerol molecule comes from our lipids or triglycerides, where you have three fatty acids dangling from the glycerol molecule. Well, the phospholipid has two fatty acids dangling from that molecule, and then there's a third carbon molecule that has a hydroxyl moiety that's phosphorylated, and that makes a phospholipid. So glyphosate, instead of the phosphoric acid phosphorylating and making the phospholipid, it phosphonylates it. Glyphosate has a carbon phosphorus bond instead of a carbon oxygen bond of regular phosphorylations. And that corrupts the molecule so that it doesn't function. Glyphosate can lock a gene on, or it can shut a gene off. When it locks a gene on, like with nitric oxide, that can create some substantial problems. Nitric oxide is a very important signaling molecule for the brain and for the tissues. Nitric oxide has gained awareness more today because of erectile dysfunction in men, which is a huge problem. And the nitric oxide is generated by nitric oxide synthase, which is an enzyme that gets phosphorylated to turn the gene on to crank out the nitric oxide for smooth muscle relaxation, for tissues of the heart or other tissues in the human body. That nitric oxide bonds with another chemical species known as guanylate cyclase. and that's where it docks, and that's what is necessary to achieve erections. So glyphosate interferes with that molecule. What happens is glyphosate locks the gene on so that it continuously produces nitric oxide, and you get an excessive amount of nitric oxide. You get too much nitric oxide, and that's not good. Too little is not good. But glyphosate also inhibits the guanylate cyclase so that the function of the nitric oxide bonding to the cyclic guanylate cyclase is not completed, and that affects the male erection. So that's why they have all those different pills that they give.
Well, I'd like to interject something here. The companies that make PDE5 inhibitors have shifted their focus from old guys like me to young men in their 20s and 30s who shouldn't have erectile dysfunction but do.
That's true, and it's because of glyphosate. Glyphosate is disrupting those biological pathways. Glyphosate is responsible for erectile dysfunction. Glyphosate needs to be pulled from the market. It affects so many biological pathways. It's frightening.
Well, there's another pathway that I learned from discussions with you in preparation for this interview, and that is that glyphosate seems to have an affinity to the insulin receptor, does it not?
Oh yeah, the insulin receptor tyrosine kinase is responsible for phosphorylation and making insulin work to control your glucose levels, and glyphosate inhibits the insulin receptor tyrosine kinase, and so when it interferes, it's interfering with the function of insulin, and it leads to type 2 diabetes. It begins with insulin resistance, but then it lends itself to type 2 diabetes. And I write about that in this paper. Glyphosate is a leading cause of insulin resistance. Nobody knows that yet, but when they read my paper, they will, because I explain it in detail.
So the other thing that I find fascinating about glyphosate is something that I also learned from our many discussions is, does amyloidosis contribute to erectile dysfunction by hardening the, what is it called? The corpus, I can't think of what it's called, but does that contribute also, amyloidosis contribute to erectile dysfunction?
Yes, the amyloidosis that's associated with erectile dysfunction is the same amyloidosis that occurs in the liver, occurs in the eye, occurs in the brain. These are misfolded proteins. Speaking of misfolded proteins, part of the basis of this work, going back to 2012, I started with the food supply, looking at glyphosate's effect on plants, and I wanted to kind of review Monsanto, Dow, DuPont, Syngenta, all their work with genetically engineered crops and the effects of glyphosate on these crops that are entering the food supply. So I pursued a 3-year experiment planting crops here in New Hampshire in a field, spraying some of the varieties with glyphosate and some not sprayed, used as controls. And I started with a line of corn from Syngenta. And then I expanded it to like 50 varieties representing varieties. I had varieties from Monsanto, Syngenta, Dow, DuPont, and I grew them and compared them against some of the ancient varieties and some of the non-genetically engineered varieties. I wanted to see what changes glyphosate would make in, if any, in these crops. And what I found was really important. I found that glyphosate was increasing the heavy metals, cadmium and lead, in all of the crops. And even on crops where glyphosate was sprayed pre-plant to kill weeds and grass before planting vegetable crops, I found that those vegetable crops were also contaminated with cadmium and lead, higher levels than the controls. Most of the controls had no cadmium and lead in them, but everything that was grown using glyphosate and spraying glyphosate on the crop, even if it was for desiccation, like drying the crop, drying wheat, drying oats before harvest. All of those crops contained significant amounts of cadmium and lead, and it was because of the glyphosate translocating the lead and cadmium from the soils and fertilizers, solubilizing it so that it was absorbed by the plants, and then it enters the food supply. Now, what do cadmium and lead do to your biology? Well, cadmium replaces zinc in your biology. There are some 400 enzymes that require zinc to function. If you don't have adequate zinc for those enzymes, they're not going to work. And cadmium forces zinc out of the tissues and causes dysfunctional enzymes. What happens is it causes misfolded proteins, the cadmium, and the lead. The lead forces calcium out of the tissues and disrupts the calcium-magnesium cycle of the enzymes. So you're getting dysfunction because of these heavy metals that are coming from the food supply. And the FDA was concerned about cadmium and lead in baby food. Well, cadmium and lead is in virtually everything we're eating, and it's because of glyphosate, because glyphosate is used with virtually every crop grown. And you'll learn about that in this paper too, because I've surveyed glyphosate usage from the year 2012 right through 2025. I have all of the latest information on the global use of glyphosate. As a matter of fact, the global usage of glyphosate in 2025. No, let's look at 2024 was the peak. Let's see. I'm looking at crop application. Here it is. Global usage of glyphosate from 2012 to 2024. In 2024, there was 4,761,984,000 pounds of glyphosate used around the planet. That's 4.7 billion pounds of glyphosate. Last year was in 2025, it was 4.2 billion pounds of glyphosate used around the planet. That was the only year, last year was the only year where there was a slight decrease in the usage of glyphosate. In 2012, we were at 1.9 billion pounds of glyphosate. That was in 2012. So from 2012, 1.9 billion up to 4.7 billion. That's a lot of glyphosate. And like I said, it's used on virtually everything. It's even used on tobacco. I did extensive work with tobacco many years ago for the tobacco companies, both British and American. I also followed glyphosate into tobacco smoke. I tested a number of brands of tobacco products and found glyphosate in the tobacco products. In Marlboro Lights, 182 parts per billion. In Camel cigarettes, 280 parts per billion. And I did a few more. Glyphosate is vaporized in tobacco smoke. It's vaporized like it is from biofuels, corn for ethanol. It gets vaporized into the atmosphere. Well, the same with tobacco. Glyphosate gets vaporized like the menthol flavorings that they put in the tobacco. They're vaporized. Glyphosate is pretty temperature resistant. So it gets vaporized and it gets into your bloodstream directly from your lungs. It's like smoking crack cocaine. It goes right into your lungs, right into your bloodstream, along with the tobacco smoke. So I looked at, while I was on that subject, I decided I'd look at the glycerin that's used in vaping products. Glycerin is what produces the vapor that simulates smoke. Glycerin is also used in the fog machines of rock concerts around the world. That fog that's coming in that visual experience at a rock concert, that's glycerol, glycerin being vaporized. And in that glycerin, it's carrying glyphosate. I analyzed glycerin from Indonesia and glycerin from the USA, and I found that it was contaminated with about 4.9 trillion molecules of glyphosate. That's about 1.4 parts per billion. It may seem low, but every one of those molecules that you're inhaling can disrupt your biology. It gets into your mitochondria. It can turn genes on and off. It can inhibit enzymes, as we discussed previously. So that's on the global glyphosate usage. Yeah, we're up to 4.7 billion pounds of glyphosate applied on the planet. And you'll get all that facts and information, like I said, for every year from 2012 right to 2025. So getting back to the minerals, the mineral experiments were very, very revealing. People have talked about aluminum and aluminum in the brain and whatnot. There was a paper published about aluminum and glyphosate. I didn't want any part of that paper because when glyphosate reacts with aluminum, it forms an insoluble trivalent aluminum glyphosate salt, and it's not transportable. It's not soluble in water. The claims that glyphosate and aluminum are problematic are only when glyphosate may bond to aluminum that's already in the brain. everything you eat contains aluminum. Aluminum is one of the most common elements in the crust, in the Earth's crust, and it's in all plants and fruits and vegetables. The use of glyphosate actually reduced the amount of aluminum that's found in food. So that was another finding of the field and plant experiments that I conducted. I also found that glyphosate disrupts the iron in food. It disrupts the sulfur that's found in food. It increases titanium in food over aluminum, reduces the amount of aluminum that is found in food, but increases titanium, which can also have adverse effects and lead to different cancers. So the changes in mineral composition of the foods is important, because many of these minerals that glyphosate's bringing into the food that we're eating are carcinogens. Like cadmium is a known carcinogen. We can initiate cancer in the laboratory in animals with cadmium chloride fairly quickly. We don't have to wait years to initiate cancer. This baloney that cancer might not show up for years because you were smoking, that's a pile of crap. The nitrosamines in tobacco smoke cause cancer, but it depends what's happening at the time within your body, within your cells, with your natural innate immunity, and what's happening with the enzymes and all these.
Dr. Samsel, talk about the role of glyphosate, methane, and colon cancer.
Oh, yeah, that's another area that I investigated in this paper and cover. I looked at, I calculated, let's see, I'm looking for that's glyphosate in rainwater. This is, I'm getting to it. It's right here. Pre-plant application. Glyphosate, that was tobacco. This is, oh, here it is. Atmospheric methane and carbon dioxide from glyphosate metabolism. I took the tonnage of glyphosate because all glyphosate molecules are eventually metabolized. Monsanto asserted that glyphosate didn't persist in the environment. Well, that's not quite true. The glyphosate molecule, depending on soil type, can hang around for upwards of a year. In seawater, it's fairly stable almost indefinitely. But most glyphosate gets metabolized, and it gets metabolized by bacteria and archaea, some species of fungi and whatnot in the environment. And some glyphosate gets metabolized in your body, in your gut, by the gut microbiome, by archaea and bacteria that inhabit and are actually about 70% of your immune system are the bacteria that are on and within you. Well, they metabolize glyphosate. So I calculated in the year 2012 through the year 2024, I calculated the amount of methane that's released from glyphosate metabolism, and the total pounds of methane released from there are 2 molecules of methane released from glyphosate. The total was 6,637,940,000 pounds of methane released from glyphosate in the past 12 years. Now that's the cycle of methane. The methane that's released this year in the atmosphere stays in the atmosphere for about 12 years. So that's the cumulative effect of glyphosate's contribution of methane, 6.6 billion pounds of methane contribution to the atmosphere. It also releases CO2, and that was 8.9 billion pounds of CO2 released from glyphosate. So that's glyphosate's contribution to climate change. It's producing methane, which hangs around for 12 years. The CO2 is a bigger heat sink than methane. And that persists in the atmosphere too. So people tell you about that cows are a problem. It's not cows that are a problem. It's the use of glyphosate on the planet that's the problem. Glyphosate creates desolation, and it's increasing methane in the atmosphere, which actually causes the increase of methane in the atmosphere is responsible for tornadoes. The change in the fluid dynamics in the atmosphere are similar to the fluid dynamics of the ocean. In the ocean environment, we've seen and know that methane that's released from the sea floor can cause undersea tornadoes. And those undersea tornadoes are an interesting anomaly. Well, it's because it's changing the fluid dynamics in the water column, and appearing as these undersea tornadoes. The same thing occurs in our atmosphere. The increase in all these tornadoes that we see here in the U.S. are actually changes in the fluid dynamics of the atmosphere caused by increased methane in the atmosphere. The molecular spin starts it rotating, and we're seeing devastation. So glyphosate is helping to contribute to the methane. It's not just the methane from leaking oil and gas wells, which is a huge problem, but any contribution of methane to the atmosphere is contributing not just to climate change in temperature.
All right, Mark, you're getting leaner and leaner, but you always enjoy the food you're eating. So how you doing it?
I got a secret, man. It's called Good Life Protein.
Okay, tell me about that.
I've been doing some Good Life Protein. You know, we've been talking on the show for a really long time of certified Piedmontese beef, and you can get that under the umbrella of Good Life Proteins, which also has chicken breast, chicken thighs, sausage, shrimp, scallops, all kinds of different fish, salmon, tilapia. The website has nearly any kind of meat that you can think of. Lamb is another one that comes to mind. And so I've been utilizing and kind of using some different strategy, kind of depending on the way that I'm eating. So if I'm doing a keto diet, I'll eat more fat, and that's where I might get the sausage, and I might get their 80-20 grass-fed, grass-finished ground beef. I might get bacon. And there's other days where I kind of do a little bit more bodybuilder style, where the fat is, might be like 40 grams or something like that. And then I'll have some of the leaner cuts of the certified Piedmontese beef.
This is one of the reasons why neither of us find it hard to stay in shape, because we're always enjoying the food we're eating. And protein. You talk about protein, leverage it all the time. It's satiating and helps you feel full.
I look forward to every meal. And I can surf and turf, you know.
Yeah.
I could cook up some, chicken thighs or something like that and have some shrimp with it, or I could have some steak. I would say, the steak, it keeps going back and forth for me on my favorites, so it's hard for me to lock one down, but I really love the bavette steaks.
Yeah.
And then I also love the ribeyes as well.
You can't go wrong with the ribeyes. So, guys, if you guys want to get your hands on some really good meat, you can head to goodlifeproteins.com and use code POWER for 20% off any purchases made on the website, or you can use code POWERPROJECT to get an extra 5% off if you subscribe and save to any meats that are a recurring purchase.
This is the best meat in the world.
The rise in temperature, but also to the increase in tornadoes. Now, in the human gut, that methane is being released. Some of the glyphosate molecules are being metabolized in your gut, releasing methane. And when methane is released in the gut, that methane can methylate various other molecules. It can also inhibit peristalsis of your intestine so that you can't poop. Your poop gets stuck. You're not passing your bowels normally daily. It slows down your ability to get rid of the waste that's in your colon, in your intestinal tract. That's created from the release of methane from not just other foods you're eating, but from glyphosate. The bacteria in your gut metabolizing glyphosate and releasing methane. Also, it locks glyphosate, as we mentioned a while back about nitric oxide. It locks on the nitric oxide generator, nitric oxide synthase. It locks that in place so it continually produces nitric oxide. And excess nitric oxide also contributes to your inability to move feces in your intestine and pass your waste. And when it slows down the metabolism, it gives the waste products and the toxins more time to pass into your bloodstream and re-traffic themselves through your biology back to your cells, back to your microvasculature. It messes everything up. So
right about now, this is where I've told a lot of people we were going to do this show. And first of all, I have to thank you for letting me interview you today. Because I've learned so much from you over the years by doing interviews here at Superhuman Radio. But the other thing is, around this point, when I tell people that basically Monsanto took a big poop on the planet, and those people out there who are talking about saving the planet need to start with glyphosate. But everybody says to me, well, what can I do? What can I do? And at first I thought maybe some sort of taking HCl tablets or what am I trying to think of? But anyway, I was thinking that there was a way to break down the glyphosate in the body. But as you point out, it's the metabolites that are the problem. So what can we do? Can we actually do anything, or is it just a matter of banning glyphosate forever?
Glyphosate needs to be banned forever. It should not be in any biology. It's a biological weapon. As I state in the beginning of this new paper, glyphosate is a bioweapon. It's a new form of matter, a synthetic proteinogenic amino acid and glycine analog with a covalent methylphosphonate warhead, which is its deprotonated conjugate Lewis-base form. Its oxygens act as nucleophilic anions, making it an excellent metal chelator. It does not require enzymes for organic chemical bonding. Like the other 20 natural proteinaceous amino acid analogs of glycine, it retains the position of glycine's N-terminus and C-terminus and can participate in condensation reactions. Glyphosate is a highly polar, zwitterionic, amphiphilic synthetic amino acid analog of glycine, crossing biological boundaries by incorporation of phosphorus into a new form of matter, a phosphonic amino acid. It is not only a proteinogenic amino acid, it can also act as an agent of phosphonylation along with its non-alkaline phosphonic metabolites and impurities of manufacture. It's a weak acid like other proteinogenic amino acids, determined by its acid dissociation constant. This molecule is it's a disgusting thing causing desolation. It's destroying the planet. It's an herbicide. It kills things. The last
now you have a very unique perspective because besides being a scientist who has spent most of his career on exposing Monsanto's poison, and they have spent lots of money to discredit you. We could talk about that if you want to, but the thing that is shit. I just lost my train of thought. This is what the stroke has done to me.
When Monsanto had a page dedicated to me
on their corporate website.
On their corporate website, I was the only scientist on the planet that they targeted. They had a page attacking me on their corporate website. That was hilarious. They also hired consultants and media people to try to destroy our faith in our papers. I had invited Stephanie Seneff into my work back in 2012 to join me in these glyphosate papers. Before that, she knew nothing about glyphosate. We had got together for lunch in Cambridge one afternoon because Dr. Macular was talking to her about her theories about sulfation in biology and concerning vitamin D, and he suggested that she have a talk with me. So that spurred us getting together for lunch in Cambridge and discussing her theories about the sulfation of vitamin D. And I got to talking about my work with glyphosate, spurred her interest. Well, a month or so later, she went to a conference and she met Dr. Don Huber, another colleague of mine, and she listened to him talk about glyphosate, and that she had already committed to joining me in my work, so that started the glyphosate series. But this paper is a solo paper. I'm on my own, pursuing the finality of this particular compound.
Now we've had an opportunity, and I like RFK Jr. and what he has done to this administration, getting open-minded about stuff. I feel like he really missed the boat. We had an opportunity. So as a farmer, you taught me that herbicides are very critical for the harvesting season. And if we were to remove herbicides, we would have about 25 to 30% less production in food, which is a lot. But glyphosate is poison, and we have to find an alternative. And RFK, instead of agreeing to make the glyphosate here in the US and take it away from China so that China couldn't have that power over us, he should have found an alternative. And we have a common friend. I met Howard Vlieger. He calls himself the student of the soil by interviewing him years ago. And apparently
Howard and I are friends.
Yeah. And Howard is going to farms right now as we speak and showing them that they can use his stuff, which isn't a poison. I'm not sure what it is. I don't want to speak out of turn because I'm going to follow up this interview with Howard being back on the show. But RFK Jr., instead of agreeing to make glyphosate in the US, so they took the power away from China, holding it over our heads, he should have found an alternative. Why didn't he? Now, I know you've worked with RFK, correct?
No. I did a number of projects with river keepers out in the Midwest, out in Louisiana and Arkansas. RFK was he was the head of the River Keepers Association, and Cheryl Slavant from Louisiana is a river keeper, and I was a consultant to her on several projects that involved the Koch brothers and Georgia Pacific. As a matter of fact, there was a documentary made about a community in Arkansas that was affected by the discharges from the Koch brothers plywood plant and their paper mill, Georgia Pacific.
Right.
And I was the investigative consultant. I told them where to look. They were my eyes and ears, and they took samples for me, and they sent them to me, and I got them all analyzed and found the problems. But RFK was the river keeper, and Cheryl Slavant introduced my work to him, and he could have cared less about glyphosate. Cheryl Slavant was really interested. This goes back around 2011, 2012. But RFK wasn't interested. When the food movement that Kennedy got behind when he was running for president got taken over by Trump, and they decided that they would vote Trump in. Trump used Kennedy to get all those voters to vote for him. And then and I had told those activists, you're getting involved with the wrong people. He's going to leave you high and dry. And sure enough, what does Trump do? He says that he wants glyphosate production increased. They're fighting to keep glyphosate. I mean, Bayer and Monsanto. I mean, they.
And I could be wrong, but I believe Mike Pompeo worked for Monsanto.
I know Clarence Thomas was one of Monsanto's attorneys. He should recuse himself. they're considering stuff right now on whether people can continue to sue Monsanto for being poisoned. Clarence Thomas should recuse himself. He shouldn't even sit on that case, but he won't. He won't.
No.
He's corrupt.
And I'm
like
almost
the rest of
positive
them.
there's a Hillary Clinton, Mike Pompeo, Monsanto connection, because there was a period of time where Hillary Clinton was going to Europe and demanding that they use Roundup Ready corn and glyphosate, which is another segue. So,
Yeah, the U.S. State Department is a global terrorist organization. They promote U.S. biotechnology. They promote the genetically engineered seeds from Monsanto, DuPont, Dow, Syngenta, and they promote that technology to all these countries all around the world. And it's like, we want you to buy our seed, we want you to buy our chemicals, and it's like these are agents of death. I consider the U.S. Department of State a terrorist organization. I mean, because they threaten countries. If you don't take our stuff, we're going to sanction you. It's like they did that to Mexico. Told them if you don't take our genetically engineered corn and herbicide products, we're going to economically sanction you. That's it. Those are mob tactics. That's the mafia.
now talk about the funny situation. People who go to Italy to buy their pasta.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. This is really, really sad. I'm Italian. I have my stepfather's last name, but my family name was Laquadara. And my family's from Sicily. The pasta in Italy and the breads in Italy are made with wheat that's most of it's grown in Italy and in Sicily, and it's clean. They don't use herbicides, and so you don't get the reaction or the effects of glyphosate in the diet in Europe that you do here in the U.S. But the U.S. has an agreement with Italy, trade agreement. The U.S. sends wheat, and Canada does too. They send it to Italy. Well, the Italians don't eat the wheat that comes from the U.S. and Canada. They make the pasta that's imported to the U.S. It says made in Italy. So you think you're getting Italian pasta. They're making the pasta, but they're using U.S. and Canadian wheat that's contaminated with glyphosate. So you're not getting away from glyphosate by buying pasta that's coming from Italy. Unless, of course, you go to Italy and you get it off the shelf there and bring it home with you. Take it on the plane. That's different wheat than the wheat that's being made into pasta and sent to the U.S.
My good friend Mark Bell texted me in anticipation of this interview and asked, do we really have gluten sensitivity, or is it the result of the glyphosate?
It's the result of the glyphosate on our microbiome. Glyphosate, low concentrations of glyphosate do not kill your gut bacteria, but will modify your gut bacteria and the products that the bacteria produce during their normal functions. It can low concentrations of glyphosate can also cause the bacteria to become resistant to the glyphosate. What actually happens is they share genes with other species of bacteria. You have over 1,000 species of bacteria on and within you that comprise your biome, the microbiome of your gut, the microbiome of your oral cavity, the microbiome of your skin. They all have different species of bacteria that are associated with them. And many of those species become resistant to glyphosate. Of course, higher doses of glyphosate will kill bacteria, but you don't need the bacteria to prevent glyphosate from passing into your bloodstream. You don't need leaky gut, even though glyphosate and many other chemicals can cause leaky gut by disrupting the bacteria that are responsible for maintaining the integrity of the biomolecules that compose the tissues of the gut. You can glyphosate passes right in through the intestinal wall, right into the bloodstream within about 20 minutes of ingestion. And when you're breathing it from the atmosphere, it's almost instantaneous. It absorbs right through the tissues. Glyphosate is a very small molecule, like the rest of our amino acids. They readily pass through the membranes. Nothing stops glyphosate. That's why glyphosate passes the placental barrier and the blood-brain barrier, because it's a small molecule like our amino acids. It gets transported in by amino acid transporters. They hook up to it, and they bring it into the cell, and then the pH changes. When the pH changes, the bond is released, and glyphosate is swimming freely and able to react with other molecules, or be reutilized in making proteins, or becoming part of phospholipids. Or
isn't that what amyloidosis is? You're using a synthetic form of glycine, and it's being used in tissue like natural glycine?
Well, similar.
So I have two more questions. This one is going to piss a lot of people off. Do they use glycine on coffee crops?
Glyphosate on coffee crops?
I'm sorry.
Yeah, the on coffee plantations, glyphosate is used extensively, spraying around the plants. All the coffee plants that produce the coffee beans, that's the fruit of the coffee plant. As a matter of fact, you can get coffee plants at your local florist or garden center and grow them as a house plant, the coffee plant. But those coffee plants that are planted in the ground, they spray glyphosate to keep the weeds down around the coffee plants. Now, the residues of glyphosate get absorbed by the coffee plant in the roots, and it concentrates in the coffee bean. Virtually all coffee on this planet is contaminated with glyphosate. Even the organic coffee that you buy at Whole Foods is contaminated with glyphosate, and or it's one of its metabolites, AMPA, aminomethylphosphonic acid, which is a known neurotoxin, just like glyphosate. So that organic coffee that you're buying, it may not have glyphosate in it. I'll explain why. All the beans basically are glyphosate contaminated in the marketplace. When they roast the coffee, depending on the temperature and length of the roast, it will drive a lot of the glyphosate, vaporize it off, just like with tobacco. The glyphosate is most of it's vaporized off during the roasting process. However, it does not remove the AMPA, the aminomethylphosphonic acid that's in the coffee bean. That doesn't get driven off like the glyphosate. So some coffees will have low amounts of glyphosate or no glyphosate, but they all have AMPA, aminomethylphosphonic acid, and that's just as bad as glyphosate. I mean, that metabolite of glyphosate is also metabolized, and it releases methylphosphonic acid that readily bonds to your DNA in your mitochondria. It'll turn switches on and off. I mean, glyphosate gets in there too. AMPA gets in there also into the mitochondria. But yeah, that's the coffee story. And people that drink tea is also contaminated with glyphosate. And in instant tea, there's more glyphosate in instant tea than there is in regular tea. It's
reduced and concentrated.
It's reduced and concentrated. That's correct, Carl. So also in chocolate is contaminated because of glyphosate. Glyphosate increases the cadmium in chocolate. You've probably seen warnings from the FDA about chocolate and cadmium, or people talking about cadmium in chocolate and lead in chocolate. It's because of glyphosate. The work that's being published in this paper on my 3 years of field experiments that show that glyphosate increases cadmium and lead in everything that it's used in growing is frightening. One thing we didn't talk about is the effect of glyphosate on vitamin D3. You can see this melanoma on the side of my face right here. This melanoma, nasty. The dermatologist said that cancer has got to go. And so he attacked it on Monday with liquid nitrogen. It was either that or use the cancer cream, which gets absorbed into your bloodstream and travels through your entire body. The liquid nitrogen treatment was faster, so I chose that. But yeah, I have melanoma, and it's from glyphosate. Glyphosate in my diet. I'm still urinating glyphosate. I test my urine regularly. For the past 3 years, there hasn't been a month that I haven't had glyphosate in my system. 1,500 parts per billion to 8,500 parts per billion. I'm peeing glyphosate. And in my feces, it's twice as high. Glyphosate in your urine is only 30% of the glyphosate that you're eliminating. 2/3 of the glyphosate is passed in your feces. So those numbers, 8,500 parts per billion, gets cranked up to 17,000 parts per billion. 17,000 parts per billion, that's like 17 milligrams of glyphosate in a dose. And actually, it would be probably 10 times higher. Instead of 17 milligrams, it would be 170 milligram dose, because you don't pass all of your the glyphosate out in one day. Glyphosate, the cycle for glyphosate is around 7 to 10 days to pass the dose of glyphosate, and every day is cumulative. Now, getting back to vitamin D, the vitamin D receptor in order for it to function, has to be phosphorylated. That turns it on. And so that vitamin D can do its job in every single cell of your biology. Well, vitamin D can't do its job. On the world scale, more than 50% of people on the planet are vitamin D deficient. Their vitamin D isn't functioning, isn't working. And why is that? Glyphosate. Glyphosate blocks the vitamin D receptor. It phosphorylates it so that the protein misfolds and doesn't function. So if you're taking a vitamin D supplement, that's all well and good, but it may not totally be effective if you've got glyphosate circulating in your biology, which most of us do. So
what if you're getting your vitamin D from direct sunlight? Still the same thing?
Well, yeah, glyphosate's going to interfere with your body's ability to make vitamin D3. It has to be phosphorylated, and it gets phosphorylated from the phospholipids of your biology. That's where the phosphorus originates. We recycle phosphorus. We are sentient energy beings packaged in plastic polymers. Our energy is derived from phosphorus. And across the 7 kingdoms of biology, all life is dependent on phosphorus. We wouldn't have life without phosphorus, because that's where our energy is derived for our ATP, our adenosine triphosphate. That's the unit of currency for energy in all biology. Now phosphorus biology is divided into 2 different types of biology. You have phosphorus biology that's based on phosphorus oxygen bonding of phosphorus acids, and then you have the carbon phosphorus bond, which is the phosphonate bond, which is what glyphosate is, and what glufosinate, the other herbicide, is, and phosphacetyl aluminum, and there are a number of other agricultural chemicals that have the carbon phosphorus biology. They're also in this paper. I list them. So getting back to your question about sunlight and glyphosate, yeah, it interferes with the production of glyphosate. I mean, you can get all the sunlight in the world. Sunlight isn't causing cancer. It's the nitrosamines of glyphosate, N-nitrosoglyphosate, and the nitrosodimethylamine that's being created in your cells and coming from your gut. As a matter of fact, nitrosodimethylamine, they've been tracking that for a few years now at the wastewater treatment plants, and they're blaming it on other commercial processes. They're seeing it in city and town sewage. The nitrosodimethylamine, that NDMA molecule, is showing up. Well, it's showing up because of everybody's pooping glyphosate. Everybody's peeing glyphosate. Everybody's peeing nitrosodimethylamine that's being made in their gut, but gut bacteria, and they're pooping and peeing it out with the other glyphosate that hasn't been metabolized. Only a small percentage of glyphosate is metabolized in our biology, but enough being metabolized to nitrosamines to cause serious cancers. In one of my papers, I think it was in paper number 4, glyphosate and cancers, I had my friend Nancy Swanson. she passed away. She was a lovely lady. I had asked her to do all that work back in 2012, going into the government database and looking at the various diseases and comparing it against the production of corn and soy. I had her go through all different diseases, and it showed a definite trend that was more than coincidence. I mean, the graphs were striking. The p-values were like 0.05. It was like you can't say that the coordination between the two was causation, because then they'd rant and rave. But the associations were so close that you had to take a second look, and that second look is what I've done since 2012, chasing this molecule, this glyphosate molecule. I've spent over $1 million of my own money researching this molecule. You can't get money from organizations to do the research.
So how realistic is it that we can get glyphosate banned in our lifetime?
After this paper comes out, I don't see any reason why we can't get it banned. I mean, what I reveal about glyphosate's effects on our phospholipids, which control our cellular function and the function of our mitochondria, what I reveal in this paper about that kind of says it all. Monsanto, there's no one on the planet that knows that glyphosate becomes a head group in our phospholipids and our sphingolipids in our neurology. Those lipids. I mean, it's interfering. It's interfering with our neurology through signaling through the sphingolipids.
What about the linkage to neuropathy? Neuropathy is widespread in the population. People that never had diabetes have neuropathy. What about the role of neuropathy?
Glyphosate destroys the nervous system from the inside out. The cells on the inside of your nerves are like fish scales. They overlap each other, and glyphosate destroys those connections. It literally destroys the nervous system. In Monsanto's studies, the pathologists, when they were looking at the optic nerves, many of the animals had missing optic nerves. The glyphosate had destroyed the optic nerves, and that's a common problem in a lot of people with neuropathy. I mean, I was experiencing neuropathy in my legs with higher concentrations that I was urinating of glyphosate, kind of synced in with the neuropathy that I was feeling in my legs and the bottom of my feet. So the less glyphosate that I'm passing, I don't have those feelings. But when I get high levels of glyphosate in my readings, analyzing my urine, it goes right in sync with the neuropathy. It's directly affecting the signaling of the nerves through your entire body.
So should listeners of today's podcast and viewers, should they go get tested for glyphosate levels?
Everyone should be tested. It should be standard medical practice for everyone in this country and developed countries around the planet. where there's glyphosate in the food supply, and it's virtually almost every country and island of the sea. There are only a few places on Earth where you won't find glyphosate. Everyone should be tested for glyphosate. And they shouldn't just test the urine. They should be doing fecal analysis too. And they should be looking for the other metabolites of glyphosate. They should be testing not just for glyphosate, but they should be testing for compound number 11, the dimethyl aminomethyl phosphonic acid, that DMAPA. They should be testing for that because that's the precursor molecule to NDMA, nitrosodimethylamine, the carcinogen. That's how I got this cancer on my face. It's glyphosate. It's the metabolization of glyphosate, and those molecules are in the cancers. They feed the bacteria that are associated with cancers. All cancers have bacteria that are peculiar, species that are peculiar to the type of cancer that you may have. And those bacteria feed on glyphosate. They feed on other phosphorus-bearing tissues for their energy, but the real pathogenic species of bacteria, they thrive on glyphosate because they have the enzymes necessary to break that carbon-phosphorus bond to get the phosphorus that they need, the inorganic phosphorus for their biology. Speaking of which, it brings up another global problem with sargassum seaweed in the ocean. Millions and millions of square miles contaminated by sargassum seaweed off the coast of South America and Africa. That seaweed has a bacteria on its surface that provides the phosphorus for the seaweed to survive and to multiply. Without this species, particular species of bacteria, the seaweed really wouldn't survive because it needs phosphorus, and the bacteria break down the molecules and provide the inorganic phosphorus for the seaweed to grow. Well, that species of bacteria explodes and thrives on glyphosate. It thrives on the carbon phosphorus phosphonate biology. They've been trying to figure out why there's such an explosion of sargassum seaweed in the ocean. It's because of glyphosate. Glyphosate is pretty stable in seawater, and when those bacteria have a healthy supply of food, i.e. glyphosate, they explode. And when they explode, that means that there's lots more phosphorus available for the seaweed, and the seaweed explodes. And so you get these massive blooms. So that explains that problem. Again, if glyphosate and these phosphonate type chemicals were pulled from the marketplace, we wouldn't have a lot of these problems. You know, there are other chemicals besides glyphosate. Glyphosate is the most tonnage of phosphonate, carbon phosphorus molecules on the planet. But there are several others that I've included in this paper. One is called ethithon. It's used in ripening tomatoes and bananas. They used to use ethylene gas straight in buildings, release ethylene gas to ripen bananas, but now they use ethithon and chemically ripen the bananas. Ethithon is a phosphonate, and it's metabolized. It's an ethyl phosphonate, but it still has that carbon phosphorus bond. Then there's another, there's glufosinate. In 2025, last year, there were 156 million pounds of glyphosate, of glufosinate used, but that's minuscule compared to the 4.7 billion pounds of glyphosate that was used. Another phosphonate chemical that's used in agriculture is phosphacetyl aluminum. And phosphacetyl aluminum is used as fungicide. And that's another 206 million pounds of phosphonate chemistry that's being dispersed into the environment. So when we add all these up, then there's the rest of the phosphonate market, which I have the numbers on over the past 12 years. And those are the phosphonates that are used in detergents. You remember many years ago, they decided that they had to get phosphates. That's the phosphorus oxygen compounds. They had to get phosphates out of biology because of the algae blooms. They said all the phosphates from detergents and agricultural runoff were responsible for all these algal blooms. Well, yeah, that was true, but they replaced them with phosphonates, and that's even worse. So
and that's my big concern. So right now, glyphosate is becoming, the plants are becoming resistant, and they're looking for something to add to the glyphosate, which is always worse. And they're actually looking at paraquat, which was used during the 60s during the Vietnam War to try to kill the weed, the pot plants.
Yeah, we used to use
that causes almost instantaneous Parkinsonism, a Parkinson's-like disease.
I was exposed to paraquat and diquat back when I was a teenager in high school, working on an apple farm. We used all kinds of chemicals and pesticides on that farm. Diquat and paraquat were pretty popular, along with 2,4-D.
Right.
Atrazine. We used a lot of atrazine growing corn. But none of these chemicals compare to the effects of glyphosate, because glyphosate becomes part of all 4 types of biological macromolecules. It becomes part of our proteins and peptides. It becomes part of our sugars, which are carbohydrates. It becomes part of our phospholipids that control our cellular and biology. And it becomes part, it bonds with our DNA. So all 4 types of biological macromolecules are affected by glyphosate, unlike many other chemicals. Glyphosate can go where others can't. Which
I've got to get close to the end of this recording. I'm so sorry.
We're going to talk about COPD.
Oh, yeah. So Elisa's stepdad, he had COPD, and it really took his life. And he was a farmer. He grew tobacco. He grew corn. He raised cows. And I remember asking him about glyphosate. And I'll never forget him looking at me and say, the USDA man said it's safe.
Yeah, it's safe, all right. When we're talking about COPD, glyphosate is probably one of the leading causes of COPD today. Not smoking, but glyphosate in the food supply. Now, how does glyphosate cause COPD? Well, first, let's look at the history of Monsanto's experiments. What I found in Monsanto's documents, trade secret documents, The pathologists in the marginal notes, when they were examining the animals, the marginal notes were noting that the treated animals had symptoms of COPD. They had the rales, which is a rattling of the lungs, of the lung tissue, but they also had what the pathologist said appeared to be a COPD-like pathology in the animals. Well, I got thinking about that, and my late wife, Germaine, passed away 4 years ago. She passed away April 1st of 2022. She had cancers throughout her body. We tried to eat a clean diet. Our urine levels back then were of glyphosate were 0 to maybe 50 or 60 parts per billion, very low compared to what is happening to me today. But she had COPD. She had a rarer form of COPD called alpha-1 antitrypsin deficiency. Alpha-1 antitrypsin, there are 2 genes in your liver that produce alpha-1 antitrypsin. And alpha-1 antitrypsin is an enzyme that protects your lungs from trypsin. Trypsin destroys tissues. Alpha-1 antitrypsin neutralizes the trypsin in the lungs so that it doesn't physically destroy the tissues. Well, if you don't have functioning genes, or if you have something that's blocking or inhibiting the alpha-1 antitrypsin gene, then you're going to get lung destruction, and it's a progressive disease. And your prognosis, once you're diagnosed with alpha-1 antitrypsin form of COPD, is maybe you might have 2 years to live, because it's pretty progressive, unless you can stop whatever is preventing the alpha-1 antitrypsin production. Well, studying that enzyme alpha-1 antitrypsin, I saw that it was a serine hydrolase enzyme, and from the work that I did with other human enzymes like pepsin and trypsin and lipase, those are also serine hydrolase enzymes, and glyphosate inhibited them. Well, the rule that I stated at the beginning of this discussion about
enzymes,
right, would lend itself to glyphosate inhibiting alpha-1 antitrypsin. And yes, glyphosate inhibits alpha-1 antitrypsin so that you have more cellular destruction. But glyphosate does even more than that in COPD. Glyphosate changes the glycosaminoglycans of the surfactants of the lung. And those lung surfactants are very, very important for lung function and for protecting the lungs from damage. Glyphosate becomes part of the surfactants, those glycosaminoglycans in the lung that coat the inside of the lung. Those are surfactants, and those surfactants are critical in COPD. And glyphosate alters the structure of those lipid surfactants, changing the viscosity of the surfactant so that they don't function normally. So that's another aspect of COPD. Um, uh, my my wife Tremaine was able to manage with our organic diet, but like I said, she passed away in 2022, and it was after that that everything changed in the organic market. I don't know what happened in the organic industry, but the USDA label is. I mean, it was corrupt when they initiated it. They allowed 5% contamination of organic products, but now it's even worse. Most of the organic stuff that I'm finding is it has to contain glyphosate, or I wouldn't be urinating 1,500 to 8,500 parts per billion glyphosate. I wouldn't have this melanoma on my face if it wasn't for glyphosate in my tissues. All of my tissues have glyphosate, all of them. And there's nothing I can do except continue to try to eat clean. But I know that the molecule will take me.
So people should be tested and then play detective and try to figure out what foods they're getting most of their glyphosate from. Is that the only thing you could do until they ban it?
Most people are getting glyphosate from bread and grain, corn, wheat, oats, chickpeas, peas, all of those, all of the grains are contaminated.
And I love hummus, and I wasn't even thinking of chickpeas.
Yeah, in Sicily we say chigidi.
Yeah, chichita.
Yeah, chigida.
Yeah.
And that has some of the highest levels of glyphosate of any food. And eggs are contaminated. Eggs are so good for you because they have the phosphatidyl compounds. They have the phospholipids that your biology needs, and they're all friggin' contaminated with glyphosate. I've analyzed eggs. I've analyzed the grains to feed chickens. Eggs contain not just glyphosate and aminomethylphosphonic acid, the third metabolite of glyphosate. Eggs also contain N-acetyl glyphosate, and they contain. Well, let's see. I've got it right here.
I need someone in our audience to start a petition. Someone in my audience, please go to one of these petition websites and start a petition and email it to me at carl.lanore@gmail.com. And Lanore is Lanore. Let's get a petition going. We have to get this stuff banned. This is an existential threat to humanity on this planet. And when it's not just the US, it's the world, but we have to lead the charge because this comes from a US company, Monsanto.
There are 7 different metabolites of glyphosate found in eggs. And most of the metabolites occur in the yolk. And the yolk is where the lecithins are.
Right.
And I analyzed lecithins from China and the US. I looked at soy lecithin. I looked at lecithins from egg yolks, and I found substantial quantities of. As a matter of fact, I can go to that. I have it right here. Let's just hit this. The lecithin. No, it's further down. The lecithins were all contaminated. And everybody that has eggs for breakfast are probably ingesting glyphosate. Let's see. Yeah, I'm almost. Oh, here it is. There it is. Yeah, soy lecithin. soy lecithin is used in all kinds of products, all kinds of packaged foods, and in candies. They use soy lecithins as processing aids. Those are those phospholipids. They contained my testing using high pressure liquid chromatography, mass spec. I also used ELISA, but using high pressure liquid chromatography, the preferred method of analysis, I was able to find out how much AMPA was in there too. There was over 700 micrograms of glyphosate in the soy lecithin, and over 300 micrograms or parts per billion of AMPA, the aminomethylphosphonic acid metabolite, in soy lecithin. And then in egg yolks, there were high levels. Egg yolk lecithin from Ontario, Canada, from Kent, Washington, from Ohio, more soy lecithin. I analyzed the lecithins from Germany. They were the cleanest on the planet. They didn't have any glyphosate or AMPA at all in the egg lecithins from Germany. Clean, slick as a whistle.
Didn't you also mention that you're safe buying products from Russia?
Yeah. Back in 2012, when I released my first paper on glyphosate, Putin's television station interviewed me several times. I was on Russian TV, and I warned Putin and the Russian people about genetically engineered crops, and advised them to stay away from the U.S. technology, and to stay away from glyphosate. And from what I know, back then they didn't buy into the technology or the system. I think probably their wheat might be some of the cleanest wheat on the planet.
Yeah, and there's an opportunity for somebody to start importing stuff from Russia for us to buy.
Yeah, probably. That's the lecithin story. That's what sent me to cardiolipin, analyzing cardiolipin from cow hearts. Then I found I got into analyzing. I analyzed insulin, the insulin products that are marketed. They're synthetic. They make them in the pharmaceutical companies make them in these huge vats using bacteria.
Right.
And they feed the bacteria that are producing the insulin.
The peptide.
The peptide. They're feeding them. They're feeding them calf serum and Delbeco's high glucose medium. And the glucose contains glyphosate, and the fetal bovine serum from the baby cows that they drain, that's contaminated with glyphosate. So I found the insulin peptide contaminated with glyphosate, and at the same time, someone sent me some testosterone, cypionate. They were curious about the synthetic testosterone that men are, the injections that they're taking. I found 0.896 parts per billion glyphosate in the testosterone. That sent me to bio. I said, our bile is probably contaminated with glyphosate also. So I tested the bile from cows and pigs, and sure enough, the bile salts contained glyphosate, 28 to 187 parts per billion glyphosate as the head group of bile salts. So it's changing the function of our bile salts, which are necessary to emulsify the food in our intestines so that we can begin the digestion of our food. So our bile salts are being contaminated, which is interfering with digestion. Our enzymes of digestion, pepsin, trypsin, lipase, all interfered with by glyphosate, inhibiting those enzymes. The changes in the microflora of our microbiome is happening. That's 70% of our immune system.
Dr. Samsel, I have to end this interview. I'm so sorry, but I have to thank some people. Carlos Jimenez, who was introduced to me. Carlos, is that your last name? Did I say it right?
Yes, that's correct.
Who was introduced to me by my good friend Mark Bell. I want to thank these two people for helping this podcast get produced. I want to thank my wife, Elisa, who used to be the executive producer of Superhuman Radio. Superhuman Radio has been in continuous production for over 22 years. If you like the information, go to superhumanradio.net and follow the website there. There's over 3,300 shows that I've done over the past 22 years in our catalog. Dr. Anthony Samsel, who I've learned so much from and he is a brave hero, because believe me, there's big money that's trying to discredit him all the time. So we have to share this show and get it out there. And someone in my audience, please email me at carl.lanore, Lanore, at gmail.com. Let us start a petition and start getting it out there. We have to ban glyphosate. They have to find an alternative that is not harmful like glyphosate, because there's people out there that are working to save the planet. This is where it starts. You want to save the planet? We have to ban glyphosate. Thank you for watching today's show. Please share the show and tell your friends about superhumanradio.net. Thank you very much. Okay, Carlos, you want to pull the plug?
Yes, everything good. Thank you. That was amazing. A lot of great information, and it's actually very
Thank
scary.
you for being part of it.
Yeah, thank you so much, Doctor.
Thanks, Carl.
Thank you, Doc.
You're welcome. We'll talk again.
Okay.